Father's Day to everyone, because whether you're a father or not, I hope you have a good day today. And so turn to somebody and sitting near you and say, Happy Father's Day. That's just a warm-up for what's coming a little later. And we're going to end our gathering a little bit different today. So we are going to start with announcements. And Roman, this is, again, not working. So you and me are tag teaming this. And I want to begin our announcements by reminding you about this Friday. We have our WM and Women's Ministry Summer Camp Night. It's at 7 o'clock. Yes, all right. We had a woo in the first gathering, a woo in the second gathering. People are excited for Summer Camp Night. Why not with the beautiful weather we've had, right? I mean, nothing screams summer camp night like torrential rains every day. It's this Friday at 7 o'clock. All the information is on the hub. Next Sunday, a week from today at 5 p.m. here at the church, is our last family meal of this school year, and it's going to be a little different than the way we've done it. We are trusting God that we're going to have good weather and be able to do it outside, and so we've had a family in the church donate hot dogs and burgers, so we're just asking you, bring a salad, side, or dessert, as well as chairs and blankets. Come on out. It is going to be a great time for us to be together as the family of God that we are before summer comes and we go our separate ways. So please make time to be here next Sunday night at 5 o'clock. Kids Men Workers Safety Meeting. We had our first one this past Thursday. Thanks to everyone who came. If you couldn't make this Thursday, we got another one coming up on July 5th. Please register on the hub if you haven't come yet and you're able to come on the 5th. And if you can't come to either day, please talk to either Lauralee or Kyle. They will be able to help you out from there. Parents of youth and youth, our summer schedule is on the website already. It is if you go to our hub and you click Summer Docket, you'll see the 2 youth events. We've got 2 awesome events planned for this summer. July 22nd, we're going to Canmore. Going to do some frisbee golf or disc golf and then hang out at Quarry Lake with picnic and then just spending some time in the mountains at the lake, having a good time. And August 12th, we're going to do Float the Bow. Both are going to be great times. If you are a parent of a youth, please sign your youth up. We want to have them out to be able to enjoy this together. We also have a new men's ministry thing happening this summer called Summer for the Boys. And so there's lots of opportunity for different connection for all of the guys in our church. We've got different guys who are doing different things throughout the summer. All the information, everything you need to know is on the hub. Go there, look at the different options for the things that are going to be coming around your way if you're a guy in our church, and then register or get connected, go to one of them. It's going to be great. The men's golf tournament you can ignore. That was a placeholder for another announcement that was supposed to happen this weekend, but it's been held off, and then I forgot to take it off. It was yesterday. You missed it. Don't worry about it. Our financial update. Up to May 31st. We've been bringing this to you every month. As you know, we started the year off pretty slow. May was a good month, though. We actually finished a little bit ahead of budget and a little bit below expenses, so we had a little bit of income in the month of May, which is wonderful. But as you can see from that graph that's below, our income for the year so far is below last year, and our expenses, because we had a few unforeseen things that have come our way this year, is higher than last year, which is why we've got the $26,829 shortfall that we have. And so if you are a regular giver, thank you for your faithful giving. If you're part of our church and you do not regularly give, would you please consider giving? Everything we do through the gifts and the generosity of the people who call this church home. So if that is you and you're interested in giving, would like to partner with us in all that we do, you can go to livingspringsairdrie.com/give, and there you can find out all the different ways that you can give. And then finally, this is the one you're going to have to remember. If you're new or visiting or would like more information on our church, you'd like to connect, at the end of our gathering, we're going to have our short next steps class. Go out through that door, turn left, walk into our office area, and there'll be a short 5 to 8 minute little talk that Kyle's going to lead, just to give you more information about our church as well as offer you a free gift. If you're visiting, if you've been coming a little bit and you want more information, that is the place to go. But having said all of that, let's get into our message as we continue the series that we have been walking through called Becoming a Disciple, that we have been going over for the last 3 weeks. This is week 4 of the series. And as we've been journeying this far, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there's been a process to each one. We're not offering 5 options for discipleship, and you pick 1 or 2, like some sort of discipleship buffet, and you choose which ones you want. They're not 5 completely unconnected things, but this series is like 5 steps, 5 things that we need to do that are all important to us. And each of them matters, because if we don't do the ones that we've been talking about up to this point, this week's is going to be difficult. We will end up missing if we miss the path we've taken to get here, we either end up not doing this one very well, or we end up burning ourselves out trying to do it. The 5 steps, as we've looked at every each week, start with resisting the flesh. And we got to start off by saying no to something to create space, to give our attention and our heart to what it is that we're wanting to do, and to give God room to move in our lives. So we begin with a negative action of making space. But then from that, we receive from Christ. And we talked a couple weeks ago about this one, how it's so important but often overlooked. That we are not ever meant to just be going and doing all of the things, but there's grace constantly flowing to us. And we're called to learn how to receive and be strengthened in that grace so that we can do the next ones. The next one, which we looked at last week, was from the grace we receive, we grow. As the grace of God changes and shapes our lives, we grow in wisdom. And now we come to week 4, which is we give of our lives. It never ends with us. That's something we need to understand, something we need to lean into. It's not just that we resist the flesh, we receive from Christ, we grow in wisdom, and we go, oh, this is wonderful, this is great, I'm all done, I've got so much. But it's never meant to end with us. We are called to receive and to give. And as we grow, that we would have more to offer without depleting ourselves. We're never supposed to offer more and give more than what we have, but we're also supposed to be called to people who grow and develop so that what we have to give is more by the grace of God. We're called to receive and give. If all we do is retain, then very quickly we don't need any more from God. And if all we do is give, then we very quickly reach the point of exhaustion. 2 weeks ago, when I talked about receiving from Christ, I said, if we don't inhale, we can't exhale. But it's the same in the reverse as well. If all you do is inhale, eventually, you got no room in your lungs for fresh breath. You have to exhale so that you have room to continue to inhale. And so, one of the verses we looked at a few weeks ago that clearly teaches this was the words of Jesus in Matthew 10, where he says, freely you have received. There is this receiving, freely give. And that we're called into this beautiful rhythm of receiving and giving, and receiving and giving. When we stop receiving, we'll start rationing what we have. When we stop giving, we'll start accumulating more than we need. Many years ago, I was sitting by the river in Kananaskis as we were out camping at Mount Kidd Campground. And we were there early in the summer, and the river was really flowing, like quite wide and quite deep. One of those times when it was just beautiful, wide river. And if you've ever been out there, you know that early in the summer, it is wide as the snowpack melts. And as you get later into summer, the river shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until it's just a little stream running through this big riverbed. And I was sitting by the river, just kind of praying and reflecting and just being in God's creation and enjoying the moment. And I started thinking about the water running by and this river that was just receiving from the snowpack and then giving downstream. And that the river never worried about keeping some water for later in the summer. It never was like, you know what, I should just hold some of this back. But it was in this place of as long as I'm receiving, I will keep giving. As long as I'm receiving, I will keep giving. As I receive, I give. And I was challenged by the beautiful simplicity of the example of that river. To live in this place of continually receiving and continually giving. So that I'm never just accumulating and accumulating, and I'm never reaching the point where I'm in a deficit situation, but I'm just sharing from the grace that I have been given. So essential for us as followers of Jesus. So I want to dig into this this morning pretty quickly by looking at a passage in John chapter 3, starting at verse 16. And verse 16 begins with these words. This is how we know what love is. Now, if you know what's coming, you might think, oh, of course, like John's just introducing the next subject. And when I used to read my Bible, there was a lot of times that there were parts of what I read that I would skip over. And I'd be like, yeah, you're introducing the thing, so then I need to focus on the thing. But as I've gotten older and read my Bible and practiced reading my Bible and just developed my attention to Scripture, I've started to notice that these words that I used to skip over have something to say themselves. And what John wants us to see in this part is that John doesn't assume that his readers know what love is. He pauses and he's like, listen, this is how we know what love is, and he's going to get into that. But what's very interesting is in the Greek language, you've got 4 words for love. And he, in the Greek, is using the word agape, which is the word for this self-sacrificial love. And with 4 words for love, you would think that the people would be like, I know, or that John would be like, they know what I mean by that. But he doesn't assume they understand. And he begins this section by saying, listen, let's make sure we're all on the same page as we talk about love. So often miscommunication happens because people are using the same word, but each person has a different meaning for that word. And when that happens, we can talk at each other, but we're never really understanding what's being said because we're using those words in different terms. If you talk to somebody from the UK, and I don't know if these are true, you can confirm if they're not, but this is what I Googled this week. Pants refers to underwear. Is that true? And so if you're talking to someone in the UK and you're like, hey, your pants are dirty, they take that totally different. Chips are called, like potato chips, are called crisps. And what they call chips, we'd call French fries. A biscuit refers to a cookie, which is a weird one. A boot, what? It is, that's a weird one. The boot refers to the trunk of your car, not something you put on your shoe. And braces refers to suspenders. So if you're talking to somebody in the UK, you could be using this word and they could be responding to you, and miscommunication is happening because you're talking about 2 different things even though you're using the same word. And John begins this section by saying, listen, when I talk about love, we need to make sure we're on the same page because we live in this broken world and all of us have a view of love that is somewhat skewed and somewhat misshapen by how that word has been used to us, how that word has been sometimes weaponized against us, by how that word has been used in relation to the experiences that we have received. So he says, let's make sure when we're talking about love that we're talking about the same thing. And what we're talking about is, he says, Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. This is love. Do you want to know what love is? As the old song says, this is it. And John holds up Christ as the perfect example of love. He says, forget what you've heard. Forget what your experience has taught you. Forget what the world has tried to shape love's meaning into. Whenever you think of love, think of this. Let go of your imperfect ideas of love and settle your mind on this. When you think about love, think about Christ laying down his life for you. This is the true north of love. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it should capture our hearts, and we never come to the end of marveling at this beautiful, perfect display of love. And John says, this is how we know. Forget everything else. This is how you know what love is. Let this capture your hearts, but don't let this be the end of the story. Because he goes on and he says, listen, as Christ laid down his life for you, he continues right on. He says, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. And all of a sudden there's this change of pace. There's this change of focus, change of gears from thinking about Christ's love for us to now suddenly us embracing that same attitude for those around us. And this is because John calls his readers to offer others the same sacrificial love we've received from Christ. It's not just what we receive, it's what we also give. It's a rephrasing of what Jesus said in Matthew 10 that we looked at the beginning of this message. So we freely receive, freely give. As we understand that Christ loves us so much, and he laid down his life, let us do the same thing for them. And to make sure they get this point, John then continues and he says, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? And man, these verses are swinging wildly. From just a few words ago, like this is how we know what love is. Christ laid down his life for us, and we're caught up in that moment, and we're like, wow, that is so beautiful. To very quickly, this reality of the fact that you need to now be living this same way out. How can you say, if you see somebody with a need, and you can meet that need, how can you not do anything and claim to know the love of God? Because the love of God that fills our lives should also change our lives, and the laying down of our lives has to have real world implications. Now, this is not saying that the only way we love is by giving to those in need, because if that was true, those who are poor would have no way to be able to love. But he's just using an example here, and he's saying, listen, it's easy to say that we love. It's easy to say that we lay down our life the same way that Christ did. It's another thing to actually do it. And if we're going to be people who are going to give of ourselves the same way that Christ gave of himself, it's not going to be something we do through our words. It's going to be something we do through our actions. I was in a tense meeting once between two groups of people that were having some conflict, and I was just trying to help mediate and bring some reconciliation. And the meeting ended with people on one side of the issue saying to someone on the other side of the issue, "Would you tell so-and-so that we love them? Would you just let them know that we love them so much?" And I oftentimes have a hard time not saying what's going through my mind. These words just come out. And I just was like, no. If you love that person, call them and tell them yourself. And if you don't love them enough to pick up the phone and tell them that yourself, then you can't say that you love them. Because the love that we claim to have has to have real-world implications. As followers of Jesus, we know the answer is love. So we can say, of course, I love. Yes, that's exactly it. But we have to love by what we do, not just what we say. And John really wants to drive this home. So he says in the very next verse, "Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth." As much as we love, as much as what we do in love, not as much as we say we love. We love as much as we genuinely give ourselves away from that place of freedom, the same way Christ from freedom gave himself for us. May we be people who don't love in words and talk, but who love in actions and in truth. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that right now. Normally at this point in our message, in our gathering, we have some reflection questions. Over the last number of months, occasionally we've changed it up and we've done discussion questions instead. And I know there's always this moment of awkwardness where people are like, "Oh, you want me to talk to somebody?" Yep, you already said Happy Father's Day, so you're halfway there. But the feedback we've gotten whenever we've done this is, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's really good. And so we thought, let's do this again this morning as we've talked about this topic of love and of actually making a difference. And so I want us to break up in just a moment in small groups of 3 to 7, somewhere in there. Just gather together, shift in your seat if you need to, get together with people around you, and do your best to answer 1, 2, or maybe all 3 of these questions. The first one, when you think of discipleship as a process, resist, receive, grow, give, does that make it more accessible or more intimidating, and why? Number 2, what do you think of the definition of love? And how does that definition compare to the example of Christ? And number 3, what keeps us from following Christ's example and giving of ourselves in love to others? So break up into small groups. You got just a few minutes. Pick whichever one of these questions you want to tackle first, in case that's the only one you get to, and have a few minutes to talk. Go ahead right now. All right, I don't want to end your conversations, but if I could just shift your focus a little bit. We want to include a spiritual practice in our gathering, and this week the spiritual practice we're going to have is just taking time to pray for each other. If you could in your small group ask these two questions. Number one, are there any needs in this group we can pray about? Number two, is there anyone who can meet that need in the next 48 hours? Is there some way that you can love that person and help them? As we've done this over the years, there's been times we've had incredible ways that answers have come before even prayers were offered. So take a moment, do that, then pray for each other, and then whenever you're done, we're going to let you at this point have as much time as you want. Take somebody in the group, bless the rest of that group. If you're not sure what to do, we got a blessing on the screen that you can use. And so go ahead. If you could shift your focus to this, keep the conversation going, that'd be great. Once everyone's out, if you could help stack some chairs in these sections, that'd be awesome. But get back to conversation. Sorry I interrupted you.